All he said was just do something. It's real simple. You don't have to worry about being like, you ain't got to worry about doing this or that. If you will just do the small things. And by the way, if a man can't be obedient to small things, he won't never be obedient to big things. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? And he ends verse number 8 saying, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord. Verse 9, you looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when you brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because my house that is waste. And you run every man into his own house. If you look at verse number 9, that statement, I did blow upon it, that's like, you know when Jesus gave the parable of the shaft? That's like blowing chaff and it just disperses. Look at me, I'm going to give you 2018 terms. Whenever we put something in front of God that should not be there, he will bring a storm to dissolve it. God said, I'm going to take everything you build and blow it away. Everything you put in front of me is going to be like chaff in the wind. God said, the reason you're not prospering is because you have lost sight, you have lost focus, you have lost obedience, and even greater than that, you have forgotten who I am. Look at verse 10 very quickly. Therefore, that word therefore means because of verse 9. Therefore, the heaven over you is stayed from dew, and the earth is stayed from her fruit. And verse 11, and I called for a drought upon the land. Look at me. Who called for the drought? God said, I will get your attention one way or the other. Now, Brother Rob, you got to understand something, all right? In their day and time, they didn't run down to the local grocery store and get food. If you couldn't grow it, you couldn't eat it. They depended upon rain way more than you and I do. And God said, because you have not listened, the rain's not going to fall, the crop's not going to grow, the fruit's not going to come. And not only, when that happens, church, not only will you be in a mess, your family will be in a mess. It's done got quiet now, hasn't it? Men, and I'm just speaking to the men right now. Men, when we don't put God where he ought to be in our life, our whole family is going to suffer for it. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? And God said, don't worry about Elijah and what happened in those days. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to stop the rain. Watch in verse number 11. And upon the mountains, and upon the corn, and the new wine, and the oil, and upon that which bringeth forth, and upon men, and all cattle, and upon all the labor of the hands. Then Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, Josiah the son of the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God, and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him, and the people did fear before the Lord. Verse 13. Then spake Haggai, the Lord's messenger, and the Lord's message to the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. Listen to me. Verse number 13 was probably one of the greatest encouragements they could have gotten. They have been rebuked because they did not do what God told them to. They had been rebuked because they had built their own house and not God's house. They had been rebuked because they had done everything they could to survive, and God had destroyed it because they would not listen. And then in verse number 13, here's what he says. Hey, I'll be with you. Can I be honest with y'all? Sometimes that statement, I'll never leave you or forsake you, is the greatest thing I got. A lot of times that's all I got to hang on to. And so Haggai said, listen, God did not send this message because he wants to destroy you and crush you. If he wanted to do that, he wouldn't have sent me here. He sent me here to let you know that you can get back on track, but it's going to cost you something. And so in verse number 14, he says this, and the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and did work in the house of the Lord of hosts their God in the 24th day of the 6th month in the 2nd year of Darius the king. Now listen, they're getting to work. They understand now, man, listen, we have tried to dictate when God's house will be built, but God has already said that he wants it built now. And so there's no longer no need in time. All we got to do is get to work. But there was one strong problem. The biggest problem they had was their past. Some of you here this morning, you ain't had revival in years, and you ain't going to have it 2 weeks from now. And you know why? Because there was a day and time in your life when you seen God move miraculously. God answered a prayer before you could get it out of your mouth. And you remember those sweet days of fellowship. And after that, something came into your life that got between you and God, and you've never gotten rid of it. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? And because of what used to go on in your life, you can't find peace now because you're trying to recapture what you had back then. You know what you got to do to get what you had back then? Get back to what you were doing back then. Now you say, preacher, you can't prove that. Yes, I can. There was one problem, and I believe this was the number one problem why they had not built this temple. I believe this is the number one problem why they had put it on the back burner, and I believe this was the number one problem. And you find it in chapter 2 of the book of Haggai, if you'll go there very quickly. In chapter 2, God is about to identify, I know what your problem is, and I know why you have not built this house. And the reason you have not built this house, everybody look at me very quickly. There was a small group of people that was alive in Haggai's day. And they remember, Scott, what the temple used to look like in Solomon's day. And that small group of people, in the back of their mind, Jack Carnes, they're thinking, we will never build a temple as magnificent as what Solomon had. And if we can't build a temple as magnificent as Solomon had, why should we try? If we build anything less than what he had, we will see ourselves as a failure. If we build anything less magnificent than what he had, the people will see us as a failure. And so if we cannot achieve what we once had, why even try? Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? And God knew that that was the problem. That's why in chapter 2 of verse number 3, here's what he says. Who is left among you that saw this house in her first glory? Are you with me? And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison of it as nothing? So God just identified what the problem is. He said, there's some of you here, you've seen this house in its first glory, and you've seen this house in all of its beauty and magnificence, and ever since that day and time, you see yourself as a failure because you can't get back there. Can I tell y'all something that's going to help you if you'll listen? You cannot change the past, but you can change the future. Quit trying to reach for something that you can't go back to. Instead, stop where you at now and say, God, I might not go back to where I might not even have what I used to have back then. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get everything out of my life and do the best I can to serve you and let you bless me now, right or wrong. And he just identified what the problem was. You see yourself as nothing. And I believe a lot of saints today remember a day and time when God done some magnificent things in their life. And they've allowed things to come into their life, and they feel like failures because they feel like they can't get back to where they were at. You know what you've allowed the devil to do? You've allowed him to trick you into believing that you're a second-class Christian and you will never be important again. But I got news for you. God does not have stepchildren. Either you're a child of the king or you're not. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And so what he's telling them is, forget about what Solomon done. Forget about what Solomon had. Forget about what used to be. If you will just be obedient, not only will I take pleasure in it, but I will bless it. Now, as you look at this, as the story unfolds in verse number 4, yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, saith the Lord, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. And be strong, all ye people of the land, saith the Lord, and work, for I am with you. In verse number 4, you need to circle those two words, and work. We got enough of people doing nothing. God said you want to get back where you want to get back to a place where you need to be, you got to get to work. God did not save us to do nothing, church. God saved us to work. Here's the words that Jesus used. He said, the fields are ripe in the harvest, but the laborers they don't want to work. They want the blessings of the kingdom, but they don't want to serve in the kingdom. And I want you to turn very quickly to the book of Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 3. Zechariah is the next book over, all right? I'm going to close this morning in Zechariah because it's a continuation, if you will, of what took place in the book of Haggai. But here's the people. They've been rebuked. They've been confronted. They know what the situation is. They know they got to get to work. They know that they have wasted a lot of time. And you can't get back wasted time. All right? You can't turn the clock back. But God reminds them, you don't have to try and be something that you're not. And in Zechariah chapter 3, beginning in verse number 1, watch this. This is so good. Now remember, Joshua was the religious leader in that day and time. And the devil don't want them to build a house because he don't want them to be obedient. And so in verse number 1, beginning in chapter 3, and he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord. And who was standing at his right hand? Look at me. The accuser is never going to give up on you. The Bible tells us in Zechariah that Satan was there for one purpose, to accuse him. The devil is all the time telling God, that boy ain't worth nothing. He's a sinner. He's disobeyed today. He'll disobey again tomorrow. And if y'all think that there's ever going to be a point in time in your life where the devil's going to get off your back, it's going to happen. I'm telling you when that's going to be, when you die. That's what his job is. And here's Joshua, the religious leader, who is basically a representative of the people. And in chapter 3 of verse number 1, here's Joshua, and the devil is standing at his right side, and he's telling the Lord he is worthless. Verse 2, and the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, even the Lord that has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Talking about bringing his people out of captivity. Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. Look at me. We all got filthy garments. But I got news for you today. You can be washed in the blood of the Lamb. And the Bible says when we're washed in the blood of the Lamb, we come out with white garments. As a matter of fact, Jesus said, if a man ain't got on the wedding garment, take him and cast him out. Right or wrong? So let's look at all of us this morning, all right? Let's just stop and do a personal analysis. If we stood before God this morning physically, Catlin, and he did not look at our nice Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, if he looked at us with spiritual eyes, how filthy will we be? You get the idea? Joshua didn't have on filthy garments because he was dirty. The filthy garments here was a picture of being disobedient. And I would be willing to say all of us would have some stains to some degree, and some of us may be dressed in black. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Listen, you can't get help till you first get honest. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? So here's Joshua. And I'll be honest. He can't argue with the devil because the devil's right. He did blow it. If the devil stood here today and say, hey, Jess, let's talk about the past, guilty. Right or wrong? But ain't y'all glad that the judge has the last word? Look down at verse number 4 because this is good. And he answered and spoke unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused your iniquity to pass from me, and I will clothe thee with the change of raiment. And I said, let them set a fair mitre upon his head. So they set it upon his head and changed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord stood by. And the angel of the Lord protested unto Joshua, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, if you will walk in my ways, and if you will keep my charge, then you shall judge my house, and you shall also keep my courts, and I will give you places to walk among those that stand by. Y'all know what he just told him? He said, we're going to take away them filthy garments and give you a wedding garment. We're going to give you a different change of clothes. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't walk in his way, you'll be back here. If you don't walk in his way, you'll be back here. How many times have we had to come to God and say, Lord, it's me again. I'll blow it again. You ever had them days? You know why we had to come back to that same plot? Because we didn't walk in his way, did we? Our flesh gets the best of us. And his answer, and I'm going to be honest, it was a word of encouragement. Hey, forget about the filthy stuff. Forget about who you were. We're going to start you afresh and anew. Aren't y'all glad God gives another chance? He's a God of grace and compassion, but I got news for you. Just because his grace and compassion does not give you a certificate to go out and live in sin. Do not misunderstand what I'm telling you today. And so as all this will begin to unfold, and as the scripture would get to the book of Zechariah chapter 3, here we would see this religious leader. And let's be honest, he was as guilty as the rest of the people because Haggai had to come in and preach the truth of the word. And God said, listen, we can change things, but you got to get to work. We can make it different, but you got to get to work. Can I tell you? Hey, now I'm not asking you this morning how many jobs you got in church, all right? I'm not asking that. What I'm asking you is, what are you doing to get to work on you? What are you doing to get, you say, well, how does that happen? Let me tell you how that happens. By changing things in your own life. If you read it in the Bible and you feel guilty of it and God convicts you of it, then that means there's something we need to work on, right or wrong. Many times we read the Bible and close it up as if it's talking to somebody else. No, it's talking to you. No, it's talking to me, right or wrong. Sometimes people's like, preacher, I know some people need to hear that sermon. And I'm like, yeah, you need to hear it. That's who. Why we always picture somebody else that's in a mess and not ourselves, right or wrong? I can't work on you, but I can sure work on me. And I got news, you can't work on somebody else either. You can only work on you. But God said, we got a house to build. We got things to do. Quit worrying about what it's going to look like. Quit worrying about what the community's going to think about it. Quit worrying about what people's opinion of it is. Quit worrying about what people think about what you're doing. Quit worrying about people making fun of you. Why don't you just get up to them mountains and start cutting trees and let's get to work? Because here's what's going to happen. When you finish building my house and I invade that thing and I bless it and honor it and I bless you for being obedient, all of your critics will vanish. All of your critics will go away. And the ones that don't won't matter anymore. You know why? Because you have found out that my word is true. I have kept my word. With heads bowed and eyes closed, nobody's looking around this morning very quickly. How many of you this morning may would say, you know, preacher, there's some things God showed me to work on, but I have yet to do it. There's some things in my life I need to change, but I have yet to do it. Now, listen, church, with your eyes closed and heads bowed, listen. I am not talking about the house you live in. I'm talking about this vessel that the Holy Spirit dwells in called you and I. What are we doing to change this house that we live in? What's some things that God wants you to work on that you have yet to do? What are some things God's told you to do that you have yet to do? What are some sins in your life you need to get rid of that you have yet to do? What about some things in your life that you know that needs to get separated from you and your family or even completely out of your house and you have yet to do? What are some things in our, listen, we can't go any further till we deal with the problems now. But we're always too busy saying it's somebody else. We're always too busy saying, God, I can't get back where I was at. And God finally told the people, forget about how magnificent Solomon's place was. Let's talk about you. Let's work on you. If we can work on you and fix you, the impact you have on those around you will make a difference. But I'm telling you, it's time to quit saying I'll do it later. God said the time is now. Let's all stand. This altar's going to be open. Maybe you want to come this morning and say,